Here are the instructions for your Web 2 final. You're going to create a little mini portfolio website for your final here. And I've got a running example here, so let me run through the pages and talk about what's required. And then we can quickly go over to Dreamweaver and go a little further on the requirements. Right now, I'm actually on the contact page and I've got a menu at the top created using CSS. So you're going to need a navigation menu. You're going to basically have, it looks like 4 pages. You're actually going to have 7 or 8 pages, and I'll explain that shortly. It has to do with offshoots of the portfolio, but I want you to have a rollover feature for your navigation bar at the top. So I do want you to have a bar at the top that will be fixed. I do want you to decorate it with a drop shadow. You don't need to use a gradient, but some kind of background color or potentially background image. Ultimately, though, I do want you to have these 4 buttons created. This was done using CSS, so that's one of the options. I'm going to allow you to also use the option of just putting images in a table and using JavaScript rollovers. However, the CSS version will be worth more points. Okay, it's worth a couple of more points to do this version. So if I was to click on Home, it will be your landing page, and I've kind of made a mock-up here of a portfolio page, and yeah, welcome to my egomaniacal music page. So what I'm going to want you to do on this page is to, again, by the way, the nav bar will be persistent on every page. Okay, it'll be stuck at the top on every page. So on this main home page, if I shrink my view just to kind of demonstrate what's going on here, I'll go a little smaller. Whoops, wrong button. Okay, so we've got basically 2 main columns, right? A left and a right. And then left column will be wider, take up more space. And I want you to have an H1 title for that. And then I want you to have a bunch of text in paragraph form wrapping around an image. So if I go back to the bigger size here, where the text wraps around an image. So short story on that is your image will be the first element in your paragraph. And then you'll do a float left in this case, and some margins will give you the space. Okay, I do want you to decorate all your image borders with a color and a drop shadow. I'm using white, but you don't have to use white, but I do want you to implement a border with a certain thickness of your choosing and a drop shadow set according to your preferences as well. Okay, I do want, again, an image being wrapped around text, and then below that another image. And in this image, I want you to apply the JavaScript rollover feature. So when I mouse over it, it swaps out another image. Okay, so whatever you choose, have an image swap another image out using our JavaScript rollover behavior. Then in the right column, just have a little title, could be an H1 or an H2. And I have a table here with 4 rows and 2 columns. I do want you to do something similar to this. Hopefully you're going to actually use your real artwork, but if not, use examples, placeholders, if you will. Ideally, they should be uniformly sized, but I won't hold you to that, okay, as long as it looks good. So in each row, you're going to have, in the left column, an image, and in the right column, some descriptive text. If you want to use filler text like I'm using here, feel free. I do want to have some bold text in there as well. And this text and the background image will be dictated using a selector attached to the body tag. Okay, so you're going to have a basic default set of fonts and colors for the fonts and a background image attached to the body tag. If I scroll down, I also want you to apply a footer and actually put the same text in here, Web 2 final assignment, dash your first and last name. You can colorize it as you wish. I do want the text centered. The thickness here, I'll let you decide that as well. Okay. My recommendation on background images is either to go very light or very dark so that you can have the contrast with the text. If you were to go very dark, then white text would be appropriate. I also want you to have the image to be a link. And I would like to have also at least one text link on the page. And I want you to establish the text link color using CSS. Okay, so that's our home page, page 1, if you will. if I go to the portfolio page, I'd like you to have 3 icons, 3 smaller pieces of art that will act as buttons, and these are meant to represent your 3 samples of artwork. Okay, so if I click on one, of course, it takes me to a larger version of that image. Just make the image clickable. That takes you back to this little index. Okay, and ideally, I'm hoping you're going to use your own artwork, but use whatever you feel is appropriate. Okay, and again, clicking the image brings me back to that sort of portfolio menu, and so on. All right, so that's the portfolio page. So really the portfolio page is this main page, and then 3 distinct pages which have the unique pieces of art on them. Okay, and let's go to the next one, the video page. I'd like to do again a similar layout, have everything centered, put a title on it. Demo reel seems to make sense here. Embed a YouTube video, again hoping it's something you created. But regardless, embed a YouTube video here. Do create a frame border. You can use the one common, I would suggest making a class style for your frames, and just use that same class style and apply it to the images and the video to get your border as well as the drop shadow. Put some descriptive text below. Again, it can be placeholder text as you see here. And then a footer at the bottom. Okay. And if we click that, it should play through. There we go. Okay. You kind of get the idea there. And then the last page is the contact page. Now on this page, very simply, just put your first and last name, and I'll suggest H1 tags. I would also suggest actually containing, even though there's not much information, containing it inside of a div tag that you can easily use to center on the page. Okay, so yeah, your first and last name. Do style the text as well, please. And then below that, put your email address. Now, I would recommend making it a link. We actually haven't done an email link in the classroom, but it's very simple. Highlight the text, and in the link input window, just apply the word mail to, M-A-I-L-T-O, with a colon. Following the colon, just add the email address. So mail to colon and the email address. Okay, now the other thing on this page though is that I do want you to put in a media query. That is to say, when my browser width changes, at a certain point something on the page will change. In this case, I'd like to see the color of my name change when I get below 600 pixels in width. So let me just drag the browser width to a narrower version, and when I get close to 600, there's the threshold. You can see here when it's larger than 600 pixels wide, it's its original color, but when I get below it, it's the newly designated color. I picked red. You can pick any color you want, as long as it's different than the original. Okay, so that is our, it's not also known as a breaking point, but that's our at media query, and I'm setting it to maximum width, 600 pixels. It will be red. Okay, and other than that, it will retain its original color. In this case, happens to be white. So let's just quickly move over to Dreamweaver. I'm just going to give you a couple of tips on how to start this assignment. If you look over here in my files panel, you will see all the HTML files, and I think there's like 7 of them here. I have one, let me just go to one that I have called Starter, which is just for demonstration's sake. After you've set up your directory structure and you've started your first page and you've saved it, I recommend completing the nav bar first. And then once that's complete, save it as the other files. Okay. The other thing you might want to do as well is, if I open up my CSS here, and it's optional, depends how you want to operate here, but you might want to duplicate that original CSS file that contains the navbar information, and duplicate it and rename it and attach the newly named file to the appropriate HTML file. And of course, if I was to come up to contact here, and if I open that, it's open up here already. In my CSS designer, let's say I have not attached it yet, you can attach existing CSS file. Just a recommendation. You don't have to do that. You could use the one common CSS file too, but this might give you a little more flexibility in unique styles on the various pages. Okay, so back here, again, after creating the navbar, I'll go back to my starter file here. Save it as the other HTML files, and you may want to go in and save this as a new file as well and rename it and attach those to the appropriate files according to their names. Okay, and what I recommend there is just the navbar. You may want to have a common background. In that case, that could go along with the duplicated CSS file. All right, and we pretty well went through the content, but I'll quickly go through the pages here. The index file, once again, you're going to have a main section in the middle. You'll have your navbar at the top. The main section in the middle will be a container, a div tag, and I do have a class style called container to center it and make it 90% of the width. And then within that, I have two other sets of nested tags, the left tag called section, the right tag called aside, and this is how this content gets distributed. You will be doing wraparound text, as you see here. Also an image that has a JavaScript rollover, and we'll have a footer at the bottom. The portfolio page, let's see here, there's two aspects to it. There's the main page, which has the links, and then you have the page for the artwork itself. Okay, these will also have footers. Video page, similar layout, centered, embedded a YouTube video in there, and again a footer at the bottom. Okay, and then finally the contact page, which will have your first and last name and your email linked below, and they will be styled. And this page will also include the media query. So I'm just going to click over in my CSS Designer panel here, and here is that media query. And if I double click it, you can just see that it's set to maximum width, 600 pixels. Okay, I'd like you to also use 600 pixels to establish your maximum width. If you do minimum width, you'll have to figure that out as well, but maximum width works perfect for this. So let me just cancel that. And what's attached to that is a unique H1 selector. And you can see down here that what I'm saying is that when my page is up to 600 pixels but not greater, the text color for this H1 tagged element will be red. So let's just test that out here. If I just go to the browser and we just shrink our view, once I hit 600 pixels, you see there's the threshold once again, and it changes red when it's below 600 pixels. When it's above, it stays back to that default color, which was set in the global CSS settings. Okay, and that's pretty well it for our Web 2 assignment. So you're going to be creating a mini portfolio. You will have 3 weeks to work on it. It will be due at the end of our last class. And just like all your other assignments, zip up the root folder and hand that into Canvas.